Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes to continue hustling. This episode is brought to you by Chiro HD, Evo Creative Media, 100% Chiropractic, Chiro Health USA, Imaging Services, Chiro Moguls, New Patients in a Box, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, Life Chiropractic College West, Pro Hockey Chiros, Pro Baseball Chiros, and the IFCO. You can benefit from our full list of sponsors by visiting our sponsor page at chirohustle.com/sponsors. Links in the description. Now let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 599 of Chiro Hustle Podcast. I'm your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Kendall Price. And if you want to hear about how to create $1 million practice, stay tuned. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle Podcast. It's the 599th episode. Really excited to have Kendall Price on with me. We're going to talk about his origin story. We're going to talk about marketing, new patients. I think that every chiropractor is always curious about new patients. If you guys want more new patients, go over to chirohustle.com, check us out, listen to our podcast. We're going to talk about the service of chiropractic. What does it mean for chiropractors to grow a practice and not always worry about the money, but care about the service that they're providing and get more involved. If you guys have heard me say it once, you've heard me say it a million times. Join your state associations and become members of your state associations, become members of your international associations also. And do better for yourself by getting involved. There's a lot that we're going to talk about today, and I'm really excited to have Kendall Price on with me. But before we jump into this episode, I'll let you know the big why. Why do we do what we do over here at Chiro Hustle? First things first is freedom of speech. We've all seen the shadow bans and the censorships over the past couple of years. We've never done that to anybody. So this is a place for people to share their voice and to be acknowledged and seen and heard. We also believe that chiropractic is vital to the future of this world. And because of that, I know that chiropractors keep medical freedom and family health freedom, something that is very important. And if you guys are looking for a great chiropractor, check us out, chirohustle.com. And philosophically speaking, we do protect BJ Palmer's Sacred Trust. If you guys don't know what that means, sometime during your day, go and search for BJ Palmer's last words. You're going to learn more about chiropractic than you previously did, I guarantee you. We also support subluxation-based chiropractic. We believe in innate intelligence and universal intelligence. We believe that when man or woman, the physical, gets adjusted, it connects them to man or woman, the spiritual. Now that that's all said, this is 599. Welcome, Dr. Kendall.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. So origin story. You said you have some brothers that are chiropractors?
Yeah. So I grew up in the Quad Cities. So you and I we were talking about this a little bit beforehand. We're both Quad City boys. I grew up in a little bitty farm town on the Illinois side and didn't really know what chiropractic was, but I was kind of a sick kid. I had lots of asthma issues. I used to get these abdominal migraines that were just awful as a kid. And so I just dealt with, the stuff that a lot of people who become chiropractors deal with. And, I went to the doctors and took the medications and did all those things. But I had a friend of mine whose mom was a chiropractor, and she started adjusting me when I was little. And, lo and behold, a lot of that stuff started going away. Right. And so had less and less of the abdominal migraines, and my asthma improved. And so I just got healthier. And so, by the time I was 10, I knew that I wanted to be a chiropractor. And I'm the youngest of 4 boys, and my 2 oldest brothers, both chiropractors. What's kind of funny is we all have different ways that we came to become chiropractors. but we all ended up in the same place. And so I think God kind of had a plan for that all along,
So at 10 years old, you signed your letter of intent to become a chiropractor.
Yeah. Yeah. It seemed like a pretty cool profession. I also had this really cool chiropractor in Bettendorf. His name was Sam Slavens. And every time we'd go in there, I was a wrestler and I played hockey. And so, he'd wrestle with us and he'd show me a single leg. And so it was just I don't know, it was just like going in, and it seemed like the coolest profession ever. And I can remember as a kid seeing a myovision scan at like 7 or 8 and thinking it was the coolest thing in the world to understand like where nerve interference comes from and how it affects the body. So very inquisitive and just loved being there, loved getting adjusted.
Yeah, this goes back to like why it's so vital for people to get their kids under care and to bring them to a chiropractic clinic, because you never know how far reaching something you may say or do today might have the impact on a million of lives tomorrow. And that's a BJ Palmer quote, but it really is fundamental for what you just said. From being a young kid, you went and saw something that connected the big idea to you, and you're like, wow, that just makes sense.
Yeah. And that's really what it was. I mean, and not only that, but like you see the stories or the testimonials or things on the walls, and it's just like, man, to be able to have that much impact on somebody's life is it's awesome. Right. It serves that greater purpose.
Well, a lot of people that have watched my show and have gotten to know me over the past 6.5 years of doing Chiro Hustle, they have heard my story. When I first started out, I worked in a CBP office. I was doing chiropractic biophysics as a technician, and I was helping people. But I also had a background in videography and journalism. So the doc was jobbing me out to his buddies, and I was going to do patient testimonials. So I went and I started interviewing people and asked them, what has chiropractic done for you? Like, what was your life like before you came into the chiropractor? What's your life like now? Would you recommend your friends and family? It's so simple. But I did like hundreds of these. And I started to realize that like there was like this great profession that if you didn't ask people about it, they didn't tell you about it. And if you didn't like investigate about it, people didn't know how to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they really don't, right? And it's like you almost have to, I mean, it's like when you ask a patient for a testimonial, you have to kind of coach them on like, hey, these are the type of things that like we want to know, we want to understand. And, like in my office, we always developed a system where it was like, let's roll back through what they told us on their first visit and their goals and the objectives that they told us and the things that they've met. And it's like, it was almost like when you did that, you had even better testimonials. You're like, holy crap, I forgot that was even a goal. I haven't thought about that in a year or 6 months or whatever. So it's just really, really cool,
And a lot of times I found out because they would have me do some of these like re-exam conversations. And when you talk to people, they wouldn't even remember originally what they came in for, because they were all by like visit 7, they were all starting to feel better.
It's the truth. It's the truth. They don't. I think the most underutilized tool in a chiropractic office is a re-exam. I really, really do, because I think it's the most important thing, other than probably table talk, to create a practice full of patients that are, that come for what they came for, but stay for what they've accomplished and what they want to continue to accomplish.
Yeah. When I was helping patients daily, like the doc was like, look, you can't talk about baseball. You can't talk about football. Like you can like be kind and like entertain people, but take them back to this topic. Take them back to this topic. Take them back to this topic. Because I mean, it's easy for somebody that works in an office to like spend their time talking about like who's on your fantasy football team, or who are the Cubs going to pick up this year as a pitcher. Like it's so easy for us to go down those conversations with people, but you got to make the main thing the main thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you get, if someone's coming to see you once a week or once every 2 weeks, it's like you get 15 minutes in the office tops, right? And maybe 5 of those minutes are with the doctor. You got to make those minutes count.
For sure. Well, I know one of the things that we wanted to touch on today was marketing. and you've been out of school 8 years. You said that you've helped over 100 offices create $1 million practices.
Yep.
Talk about that. Like, I think it's a very, very valuable thing for people to understand that marketing works and that new patients matter, but there have to be certain things that you develop into what we're doing today that are different than they used to be, right?
Yeah. We're talking about this beforehand. It's that I'm a big subscriber to the fact that you can't just be in one medium. When you're in one medium, you're gonna lose out on different ways, and so you have for doctors and for chiropractors to be successful, they have to be doing it all, right? And they've got to focus on their business, just like any big business does, right? I love Stephen Franson, Pete Camiolo. Their mentality of internal, external, and digital is they're on the hit it on the head, the nail on the head, so to speak. It's you have to be doing multiple channels to be successful because you got to meet people where they're at. I've really dove into the digital side of things because I think that there's so many people that sit on their phone at night. I mean, I'm at my mother and father-in-law's, and for 30 minutes last night after dinner, everyone was sitting there just kind of scrolling on their phones, right? It's where people are at. And so if that's where they are, we've got to be doing things to meet them where they are.
So I didn't prepare you for this question, but I'm quite curious. There's a lot of times when people say, I got a referral based practice. I don't need to do marketing. What's your message to that group?
Politically correct or politically incorrect? I'll go with the politically incorrect. I think that you're doing your community a disservice because we are in it. I mean, it goes to what you just said. I mean, we have the responsibility to share chiropractic with people, and knowing the amount that we can change people's lives. To quote Stephen Franson, it's the greatest act of kindness that you can have, right? Yeah. Simply that. If you're not doing it, you're not doing your job, right? It's not all about you.
I just interviewed a guy that made it to the podcast Hall of Fame. And he asked me at the end of it when we finished up our call, he's like, so why did you start your podcast? And I was like, I just wanted to create more value for the message of chiropractic because I believe that no one was actually doing it well, and it wasn't done consistently, and no one actually took it serious, and no one was going to go and interview every chiropractor that they could find and tell their stories and let them tell their stories. And I never wanted to make it about me. I always wanted to make it about the profession. So I think that if people understand marketing, they don't always have to make it about themselves, and it doesn't have to be about it. They just had to be damn consistent with it.
Right. And that's the thing that I can tell you is one of the things that I kind of bang my head against as I'm talking with doctors, especially younger it seems like the docs who have been out in practice for a few years, they kind of get it, but the young docs coming in and the docs that are, 10 to 15 years into practice, they sometimes struggle with this a little bit because it's not the things that they've always heard. And it's changing. It's ever evolving, right? And if you're not evolving your marketing, you're doing yourself a disservice. And you've got to set the systems up on the backside to be able to really make it work. That's a key component.
So turn the page with me a little bit. Say somebody's listening to this and they're like, dang, I'm struggling. And they're like, I want $1 million practice. This guy's helped create 100 of these things. Like, what paces do you take somebody through?
I think that it's understanding where they are in their practice, right? Someone who's brand new out of practice versus someone who's looking to bring on their next associate. It's understanding what it is that they're doing in their practice. What are your goals? What are your objectives? Right? It's just like when you're talking with a patient on their new exam, right? What are they trying to accomplish? Because are you trying to accomplish $1 million practice because you want the money and you want the clout? Or are you trying to create $1 million practice because you want to help and serve as many people as possible? So I think the first question starts as a heart question, but the second question is then what are the things, and is your why big enough to help you get to that stage? Right? And until you can get over that hurdle, the nuts and bolts side of things don't really make that much of a difference. But I think that because I think that the truth is when it's all about the money and it's not about the heart and the service, it comes through in the things that you're doing and the things that you're putting out and the things that you're saying. Because we tend to see, lazier videos, lazier ads, lazier things like that when people are not as passionate or kind of full of the philosophy of chiropractic.
But I mean, what if somebody's like a hard case and they're like, I don't want to do a video. I just want to grow a practice, or I don't want to be a digital creator. I just want to be a chiropractor. Like, I think that that's very rational for people to think that way. Like, I don't want to be a content creator. Like, not everybody wants to be that person.
And I think that one of the things that I've come to realize is that the more you can step into positions in your life where you're uncomfortable, that's where your growth really comes. Right. And so you do have to sometimes do things that are a little uncomfortable in order to serve that mission and that purpose. Right. I can tell you that, when I first started in practice, it was uncomfortable as all get out to get out and do a screening in a community. Right. But I knew I had to do it because I knew I needed to tell people what the message that I had about chiropractic. I needed to grow my practice because I have a fundamental belief that all chiropractors should be successful. And sometimes it's just putting the work in, the hustling and grinding, so to speak. And so if you're not willing to put yourself in an uncomfortable stage, you get to choose your hard, right? Choose a hard life and a hard practice, or choose to do something that is difficult for you, but in the long run is going to serve you and your community just as much.
So let's go back in time. 8 years ago, if
Yep.
there was one thing you'd have done differently, what would it have been?
Oh man, that's a good question. So I came right out of school and opened my practice from 0 patients, had $237.14 in my bank account the day before we opened the practice. So I had 80 new patients on my books the first week. Honestly, I think that the biggest thing that I would have done back then is I would have started building more digital real estate in my local community, and really focused more time on content and doing things like you said to create value, build value for my patients, because I think that would have taken the 3.5 years, 4 years that it took to get to $1 million practice and probably shorten that timeline probably in half.
So you'd have created better digital runways for yourself.
Yeah, because I again, it all goes back to what are you doing to with coaching groups and mentorship groups and all these things, they teach you the nuts and the bolts, how to do a day 1, how to do a day 2, how to screen, how to do these sort of things, like tangible sort of things. But I don't think that we understand that you have to have an audience. And the more that someone knows, likes, and trusts you, and the more that they see you, it's a really effective medium to be able to build that trust to where when they are ready, they already know who they're going to go to. Right. Play for the long game, not the short game.
So you said earlier that you were at your in-laws and after dinner, people are scrolling.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that people are getting input aphasia? Like they're just tired of ads in their newsfeed. They're tired of like being sold to. They're tired of being marketed to, like on social media.
100%. Right. I'm totally with you. I think that there is a component where people think, they're tired of seeing it. Right. I've seen my mom post stuff about, how do I get away from this? And it's like, I get it. And that's where I think that the content and value based things that you can give to people is super helpful. Right. And the more value you can build, when your ad does pop up, it doesn't seem so intrusive.
Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I go on my timeline and I'm just like, hide ad, hide ad, hide ad, hide ad. I don't care who it is.
Yeah.
Like I'm just hiding everything. I spend like 2 to 3 minutes of just hiding stuff in my newsfeed just because I'm tired of seeing people try to sell me when all I want to do is like read somebody's comments to somebody else's like post, or I want to like see what somebody's like doing like for their real life. Like, where are they going? What are they doing? What are they like interested in? Like, I think that there still is a mechanism of social media where you should be social on it.
Yep.
And not everybody wants to show up and see what the next thing is that somebody's trying to sell them an ice bath or an iron neck or whatever it might be, like a sauna or whatever, like
Right.
or a chiropractic visit.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get you, and I think that this kind of speaks to the mentality of the the way that we're looking at the world, right? And so, um, truth be told, as far as other than business dealings, I don't use social media all that much, right? Because I find that I can get sucked into it if I use it for too long. Um, and so, I use it for those sort of components, but using it as a business tool is the thing that I've found it to be most successful for. Because while you and I may look at it that way, not everybody does. And the general population certainly doesn't.
So let's switch the conversation a little bit towards service.
Yeah.
Like you were talking about, like, before we started this interview today, like one of the topics you wanted to touch on was adding the idea to the chiropractor to not do everything for what they get out of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just being tied into your community, right? I mean, it's locally, but also, I'm a big proponent, and this kind of goes into what we talked, what you said about being part of your associations. I'm the vice president of the Illinois Prairie State Chiropractic Association. And I got involved with that simply because it's a philosophically sound chiropractic organization. And, I wanted to do what I could to help serve our chiropractors in our state and really try and grow that. And over the last few years, we've really, really done things to, try and bring as many people in as possible, really big name speakers, just to deliver on value and gold, right?
You made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is brought to you by Chiro HD, Evo Creative Media, 100% Chiropractic, Chiro Health USA, Imaging Services, Chiro Moguls, New Patients in a Box, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, Life Chiropractic College West, Pro Hockey Chiros, Pro Baseball Chiros, and the IFCO. You can benefit from our full list of sponsors by visiting our sponsor page at chirohustle.com/sponsors. Links in the description. Now let's hustle. Yeah, I mean, that was another part of this guy that was on my show earlier, Dave Jackson, the podcast dude. And I was like, he's like, so, a lot of times people will start a podcast so they can, like, grow their brand or, like, get so many downloads. And I'm like, actually what it's done for me is it's allowed me to get recognized and asked to speak at state association events.
Yeah.
And people are starting to, like, take notice that that's a huge value. Is when somebody has interviewed everybody, that means that they probably have a few things that they can share that would be of value to that group. So yeah, it's cool that you've been involved with the state association. I guess an even better question would be, philosophically sound state association. What's the other state associations? What are they doing?
I to stay sort of apolitical, I'll keep it, it's kind of a what is your philosophical tilt, right? Do you believe in vertebral subluxation? Do you not? I mean, I think that there's a lot of state associations. There's a lot of states out there that still have two associations. I know Wisconsin has two. And so it's what are you getting when you go to those, right? Are you going to get someone from, that's coming and pushing all kinds of supplements and creams, or are you going to get flea dipped a little bit in chiropractic philosophy and the things that truly make a difference and that light you back on fire? And so, we've really tried to do a good job of, bringing people in who are going to talk about, hey, here's the really cool new science that proves, how subluxation affects the body, So you get the science-based stuff, but then um, you get people in there that are spitting, philosophical gold, the Liam Schubels of the world and those sort of people. And it's just like, man, what an event it makes when you have a little bit of all of that, science, art, and philosophy, to really push people to go back Monday morning and have an impact.
And I'm not taking you on like a crazy path or anything, but why are they removing philosophy from the state associations? Like, it doesn't make sense to me as an advocate. I think that the patient doesn't need to understand chiropractic philosophy, but dang, the chiropractor has to understand philosophy.
Yeah, truth be told, I think that we have such a shattering or splintering of our profession in just the so many ways that people can practice. But yet the only thing that's really unique about what we do is the adjustment and the addressing of the vertebral subluxation complex. And so I don't understand it either, if I'm very honest with you. But I think that what it boils down to for me is that there are times when people can see, maybe, hey, well, I can help people this way, but should you, right?
Well,
And so it becomes more of a practice or a thought exercise in how do you want to do things.
Well, being an educated doctor, and there's educated risk involved with that, and retaining your own identity is something that shouldn't be of a risk.
Right.
And I think that having certain parts of your component of your practice, science, philosophy, and art, like I said, not every person that comes to the chiropractic center or clinic or practice needs to understand that chiropractors have science, philosophy, and art. But the
Yeah.
chiropractor like definitely has to like retain their value of their education, of how this profession was founded. And like there's two different conversations. It's like parents that have a conversation about like, religion, or parents have a conversation about Santa Claus or Easter Bunny. And then
Mm,
there's the scope that we reveal to children,
right.
or there's the way that we like have Sunday school for kids.
Yeah.
There's like the portion that we reveal, but also the portion that we keep sacred.
Right.
And I think that there are parts where there's a huge confusion. Like nobody wants to come to BJ Palmer's office and get adjusted. They want to come to your clinic that you've built, that's your practice with your signage and your touch.
Yeah.
Like chiropractors, they want to go to BJ Palmer's clinic because they want to see what BJ Palmer's life was like. But
Right.
like the average patient, they don't need to know who BJ Palmer is. They don't need to know that what a toggle recoil is. They don't know what diversified is. They don't need to know what a Atlas orthogonal adjustment is. They just want to come in and get better.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's one of the things that we as a profession have kind of struggled with is just the fact that like we're so stuck in our way, like our way, the way we do it, right? And it's like it is the best, and you should absolutely believe that what you do is the best. In my mind, I am the absolute best chiropractor that ever walked the face of the earth in Aurora, Illinois, right? Because I have to go in there because if I'm going to deliver on the goods that I've promised to a patient, I've got to believe that, right? And so, but to an extent, we also have to be pragmatic enough to look at ourselves and say, how does that serve the profession as a whole? Right.
Well, there's an old saying that a divided house falls. And we need to make sure that we retain identity and that we do find a symbolism of protecting the sacred trust, which this show stands for.
Yep.
And I think that if everybody just understood that, and if you went back and listened to 50 episodes of Chiro Hustle, you would understand from the practitioner's perspective of why the profession matters and why we should be retaining these things rather than manipulating and changing them and taking chiropractic out of colleges as names and taking philosophy out of schools and retiring teachers early. Like, I think there's a huge madness when it comes to wanting to change the profession, not for the better. And it's not for me to correct that, but it's definitely something that we need to talk about as a culture of chiropractic to make sure that people at least have an awareness around this,
Yeah.
to where it just doesn't come in and all of a sudden they're like, all right, it's no longer chiropractic, guys.
Yeah.
You guys didn't stand up for yourself, and we just started changing everything behind the scenes.
And I think that it's for me, it's keeping the main thing, right? And that doesn't mean that maybe you can't do the other things that you want to do in your practice, right? I'm not For me, I don't want to limit what someone's scope is, or or tell them that they can't do the things that are within the realm of what we're taught and what we've learned. But understanding that patient needs to walk out of the door and understand what the most important thing is that happened on that visit. And if they understand that, then we've done our jobs.
Yeah. To me, I want to retain the profession for your kids and your kids' kids.
Yep.
And if people wanted to come into chiropractic and become chiropractors, then practice chiropractic. If
Yep.
people want to come into chiropractic and they want to do something that's not chiropractic, then don't be a chiropractor.
Yeah.
Like pick your path and go down it.
Yep.
You don't see people coming in into like Olympic like sprinting, saying, no, we're gonna change everything about Olympic sprinting now. We're gonna put in some things with swimming, and we're gonna try to make sprinting similar to swimming now.
Right.
And just because it's a sport, we're gonna put some weightlifting in there too. And because you guys are like, okay, as athletes, we're gonna put some swimming, some weightlifting, and some sprinting all into it, but we're not gonna call it sprinting anymore. And yeah, if you guys think that that's the way it's supposed to go, then you're wrong now.
Right.
But sprinting's no longer sprinting, and we're going to put weightlifting in there and some swimming. And by the way, there's no water either, but we're going to tell you guys that this is the new sport.
Right.
And that causes confusion.
It does, for sure. For sure.
And now people open up clinics and they're like sprinting, weightlifting, swimming with no water, and people show up and they're like, that's not what sprinting is.
Yeah.
That's confused.
It is. And it's because we're dealing with this. I think that really gets away from some of the things that, as you are portraying the message in your community, right, with what you do, it's helpful to be very focused on the things that you provide, and that you provide super, super well, right? And that has to come through in a very clear message. I was a part of Amped for a very long time with Michael Viscarelli, and he always used to say, confused consumers don't buy.
They don't.
And so,
but symptoms sell.
They do. And so I think that it's you run this fine line of, especially as you're marketing your practice, to like, what is it that you want to, what you want to do and what you want to see, right? Do you want to be a straight peds office, right? Do you want to be a whole family office, right? Do you want to do a corrective? Like, figuring out what that is, who your avatar is, who that person that you want to see is, and then doing the things to focus yourself in that direction helps you to be able to really clarify to your avatar patient what it is that you do and how you're going to be able to help them.
So you've been as a practicing chiropractor 8 years.
Yep.
5 more years, you're 13. Where do you see this profession going?
I think that COVID really woke. This is just my take. I think COVID really woke people up to a lot of the things that are happening in the medical industry, and it made them start to question how they looked at their life all around. And people are wanting people who are going to preach truth, right? They're wanting individuals in their lives that are going to help direct them and lead them. And I think to do that from an inside out perspective is really awesome, because I can tell you it was a very hard 3 years to be in the Chicago suburbs and running a practice, but I was able to have lots and lots of really awesome conversations with people about things that I never thought that I would, be able to broach the subjects with, right? From home births to, not that I don't talk about those things anyways, but, home births to, hey, what does your family do? How does your family eat? How does your family do this? How does your family do that? Like, they were looking at what was happening and realizing that this is not how we want to live our lives. And so I think that it in another 5 years, if we continue, if we take the opportunity to continue to keep preaching messages of a chiropractic and a chiropractic lifestyle, I mean, our profession could go places. But I think that the biggest thing we have to do is create more successful chiropractors in doing so. And if we do that, I think that our profession is going to be in a really, really good place. But unless people get involved, it's, it's more problemsome, because the more shattered we become, the more problematic it is to try and make any sort of real change.
So speaking of that, like, who's helped you build your powerful belief systems as a chiropractor? Who are some of your mentors and heroes and people
Yeah.
that have like give you the foundation to stand on, that you say these are the reasons why I'm a successful chiropractor in Aurora?
I mean, first one and two is my brothers, Josh and Kurt Price. They instilled in me when I was in, I was in high school, middle school when they're at Palmer, and they started talking about, the philosophy of chiropractic and the thought process of chiropractic.
Amen.
Right. And when I got to life, right, it was Rob Schiffman was a big influence in my life. I joined his group right out of the gate. Michael Viscarelli, Jeremy Hess, right? Those guys were instrumental in, open my practice. Brad Glowacki, Pete Camiolo, Stephen Franson, right? Those are the guys that instilled things in me. And then, truth be told, just reading green books, right? Like buying into what it is that we do. And so I feel like there's a lot of people who just don't continue to grow, right? Um, I always like the quote, when you're green, you're growing; when you're ripe, you rot, right? Always being a constant student, right? When you're a constant student of your profession and of your game, like, you realize that there's always things to learn, and being humble enough and coachable enough to realize that you don't know it all, you can do a whole lot more in your practice, in your life, right, than you ever imagined possible.
Well, I look at you as a really foundational leader moving forward, and I appreciate you helping grow practices and growing a healthy family, and standing on your values and learning from those that came before you and passing that on to the future, and being involved with your state association and understanding the value of philosophy and learning that from your brothers, and hopefully passing it on to more and more people, because you are a spark, you are a light, and the world needs more spark and light, because I think BJ Palmer said, you can't curse the darkness or something, or
Can't
I
curse
don't,
this, but you got to light a candle, right?
yeah, something like that. But there's so much truth in having your values and your clarity, and knowing why you do what you do and who you do it for. And then your practice builds around you. Like you said, whatever style of practice you're going to do, if it's going to be diversified, if it's going to be pediatric, if it's going to be torque release, if it's going to be chiropractic biophysics, like, that's the part where the foundation of the practitioner practices their art. And that's why chiropractic is science, philosophy, and art. And that's why we're all more alike than we are different. And chiropractic is a beautiful profession. And, one of my mentors would always tell me, when you point a finger at somebody and judge them, there's three pointing back at you. So we always have to be careful of how we interact with each other. And I gave a talk like 6 years ago in Boulder, and the talk was called Unity Through Diversity, and that we all need to appreciate each other. Not me being a chiropractor, but me being an advocate for chiropractic. I appreciate each practitioner, because you guys do what you say you're going to do, and that's take care of people with your skill sets.
Yeah.
And everybody does a little bit different, and that's what makes you an artist.
Yep.
And just as long as we stay foundational and fundamental with philosophy, then the profession perpetuates greatness rather than confusion.
Agreed. My oldest brother taught me very early on the principle of be, do, have, right? Be the person that you're supposed to be, do what you're supposed to do, and have the things that you're supposed to have. And that's been a foundational thing that's always kind of resonated with me. And that just says that not everybody is going to be 1,000 a week office, right? But what does that success look like for you? And then what are you doing to be able to put that into place, right?
Well, everybody's got it flipped upside down, Dr. Kendall. They have the have do be.
Yeah, very much so. Very much
So
so.
close us out with a miracle story. What's something you've seen in your practice over the past 8 years that you like to share with our audience today?
Coolest story. It was, I don't know. I always love the people who come in and they're, like folded arms. They look crabby as all get out. Cause my goal is always to change that when they leave my doors, right? Leave them better than I found them. And, she actually worked for an insurance company, doing case audits against chiropractors, to try and cut their bills for one of the large, insurance auto injury. And she had issues for like 7 years trying to get pregnant. And someone had told her, well, have you ever seen a chiropractor that, they can help with those sort of things? And she came in and her first statement to me is, I don't believe anything that you're going to do. I don't believe it. I think you guys are a bunch of quacks, but I'm willing to try anything at this point. I'm like, well, it's nice to meet you too. Right. And so we got in and um, she was going through a fertility treatment at the time, and we started getting her adjusted, and it was like 6 weeks into getting adjusted, and her blood work normalized compared to the past 7 years. She's like, my blood work has never been this good. It was a 90-day recommendation to start with her. And at week 8, she came in and she looked at me and she just shook her head. And I said, what? Like, and she said, I'm pregnant she said, I'm pregnant. And she said they were fighting over, who was going to get to tell me today, at the clinic after the heartbreak that we've been through for the last 7 years. So I mean, obviously big hugs in that, but I mean, what a miracle, right? What a miracle to be able to help someone with, I've got 4 kids. To me, the most beautiful thing that you can ever do is help somebody to create a family. And not that I did it, her body did it, but we just did what we did. We adjusted, we removed the interference, allowed the body to do what it's supposed to do, allowed it to heal, and, gave her an opportunity that maybe she wouldn't have otherwise had.
I'll close out 2 things. The power that made the body heals the body. I know it's old school rhetoric and chiropractic philosophy, but the body needs nothing extra in it. It simply needs no interference. And I think that those things are powerful. When chiropractic is very well understood, the body doesn't need anything extra in it. It simply needs no interference. When you clear the interference, the body gets pregnant. And that's when the chemistry of life is working. And
Yep.
that's some Reggie Gold stuff. And it's the glands that work. It's the ovaries that work. It's the body that starts to create cells, and that's the thing that happens as the body starts to function the way it's supposed to. Clarence Gonstead said, find it, fix it, adjust it, leave it alone. And that's so important about chiropractic, as it is a nervous system profession. And it's not about the pain of the person. Sometimes it's the pain of the individual's attitude. And that's hard to deal with sometimes. But once you get through the biggest subluxation, the one above their atlas, you can get through to the subluxations in their spine. And there's so many times when people have the massive subluxation between the 6 inches of gray matter between their temples that you can't ever get to the spine. So yeah, I think you've done a great job by getting through that lady's psychology and letting her know that it's not about what you believe or what you don't believe. Like Sid Williams would say, chiropractic works like gravity. It works whether you believe it or not. And he'd drop the keys. So whether you believe it or not, chiropractic works, everybody. And you don't have to believe in chiropractic. I tell people that a belief system's the Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny. Chiropractic's a healing art. You just have to go in, get an x-ray, get a nervous system scan, get an assessment, an evaluation, and find out if it's for you. If it's not, there's no strings attached for further care, but I guarantee you're going to learn more about your health than you previously did. And then I say, guess what? You're going to like us too. And then people show up and they like us, and we change their lives all the time. So that's the greatest miracle. It's not a belief system. You don't have to believe in chiropractic. Just like that lady didn't.
Yep. You don't have to believe in it for it to work, because it works regardless.
So is there anything I didn't ask you that you was hoping I was going to ask you today that you'd like to share with our audience today?
No, not really. I mean, I think the biggest thing, we did start with my business partner and we started a podcast, $1 Million Practice Podcast. We've got some real gems on there. We've gotten a lot of big names in the profession and people that are doing really cool things. And it's just kind of like this, right? It's value that we're trying to add to the profession of ways to be more successful in your practice, right? To get the right mentality, the right frame of mind, and to be able to really reach the people that you're looking to reach.
If people want to learn more about you or get connected to you, where do we send them to?
Yeah. Best place to get connected. You can email me at drkendall@goelevatemarketing.com. You can visit us at our website, which is goelevatemarketing.com. Or you can find me on Facebook, right? Just Kendall Price.
GoElevateMarketing.com, guys. Send them an email, Dr. Kendall at GoElevateMarketing.com. Find them on Facebook. Hey, Doc, thanks for being our guest today.
Thanks for having me.
You're episode 599. I always close out by telling everybody you're just one story away. Keep hustling. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.